Yeah, welcome everyone. So I think we can start. Before we go to the readings and verses for today, let's take the opening aspiration. Yeah, so if anyone wants to read out the opening aspiration for all of us, please go ahead.
Yes. With boundless compassion and wisdom, I will work for the welfare of all. May we be free from hunger and discord, and have joy and a world at peace.
Thank you. So, just a second. So we are on verse 13, but I thought today we can maybe take a few teachings of Jetsunma from her recordings and listen to those teachings, reflect upon those teachings in terms of whatever we have been going through. So far we have come to verse number 13. There are total 37 verses of a practice of Bodhisattva. So I thought maybe today, after closing, because it's only a short portion that is left of verse 13, we can just go back, revisit whatever verses we have taken up so far, and first listen to teachings by Jetsunma. So just kind of giving us the essence of why we are doing what we are doing, because at times one just feels here and there. So yeah, so I'll just play two recordings by Jetsunma, and in one she's talking about nature of the mind and how we are mostly on the surface and we can take the deep dive within. Nature of the mind, according to Buddhism, they say that it is pristine awareness, this quality of awareness which is just always clear and radiant and full of light. And in the other recording, Jetsunma talks about how our mind is very sticky and it's always sticking to thoughts, opinions, people, situations. So she says that we have to make it non-sticky, and that stickiness and grasping is the cause of our misery. So these two we will listen to today. So I hope it is okay if I only play the audio, because I feel that then we are more focused on what she shares. So I just, if there is any problem with the audio, you let me know. You can type or let me know by unmuting. I'm just starting now.
Because the problem is that if you consider it like, if you consider the mind like an ocean, then, you know, normally we, as I always say, we usually are living on the surface of the ocean with the waves going up, the waves going down. This is our ordinary conceptual mind. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're not happy, and so forth. But in meditation, especially in shamatha, we begin to calm the waves of the mind. And this allows us to go down deeper and deeper into the actual ocean of the mind, into the ocean of our consciousness. And when we do that, then of course we might meet with friendly dolphins and beautiful golden fish and all very lovely, but there are other things also living in that ocean, sharks and, you know, giant squids and all sorts of monsters of the deep that we're just as likely to meet with. And if we have a lot of genuine mental disturbances, especially some people who are quite sort of paranoid or schizophrenic or psychotic, then those monsters of the deep are what they're likely to meet with. And they don't have the ability to deal with them. So actually meeting them face to face with no diving suit on can make it worse. I mean, and exaggerate the problems rather than deal with them, because they don't have the abilities to deal with them. So that's why it's often better for them first either to meet with a good psychotherapist, maybe get on some kind of basic medication so that they can deal with meditation. And in that way, gradually be able to learn how to deal with these beings underneath. I mean, sharks can be very friendly if you know how to deal with sharks, but if you don't, they'll eat you. And so therefore, we shouldn't think that meditation, opening ourselves up to these vast inner dimensions, is necessarily going to be a healthy thing if our mind is not already quite healthy and balanced.
Jetsunma, sorry.
Yeah, so this we also come across with Sri Aurobindo in Savitri and at other places, that there are all kinds of things that we come across when we go deeper, take a deeper dive in ourselves. And that is why whenever we need the help of a therapist, of a healer, we must go out and seek guidance before we can be totally on our own. And from time to time, all of us require some or the other kind of skilled guidance and hand holding. So with that aspect, that there is light also, but there are many darknesses also which one has to deal with, and not all the time just meditation can be helpful. It can be dangerous also if the mind is not stable. So that was that. And now we can take reflections later. Now I'm going to play the other thing where she tells that the mind is very sticky and graspy. So that I'm going to play.
The problem with our mind is that it grasps, right? It catches on to things, and it's sometimes I say it's like Velcro. It's full of little hooks which catch on to things. And so it's trying to make the mind more Teflon-like, very smooth, nothing sticks. But if one has to make decisions, if one has, in the moment, one should also be aware what's happening. And if we need to plan, if we need to decide, the point is not that we don't plan and decide. I mean, all these lamas are super active and very organized, really. But we don't grasp at it. It's this open, spacious awareness of the moment, and how to deal with it skillfully just comes naturally if our mind is not grasping. I mean, the Buddha always said that the cause of dukkha is the grasping. And that's the problem. If we look at our mind, we see how much our mind does catch onto things, either with pleasure or with aversion, constantly. And so to be conscious of that and let it go, let it go, let it go. But that makes the mind more clear, more focused. It doesn't end up us being kind of zombie-like. Actually, the opposite happens. If we are aware moment to moment of not grasping, then we become the mind, all the mud, all the mud sinks to the bottom. And the water becomes transparent and clear. And then we can make spontaneously almost, we make the right decision. People might think, wow, that was really a good idea, but it just came up because it's so obvious now. It's because it's so clear. So that's the point. It's not that we end up being completely ineffectual. For the first time, we become genuinely effectual, because we are dealing with the wisdom mind and not just our usual rather stupid, plodding along, caught up in likes and dislikes type mind. I mean, all the great lamas, as you know perfectly well, are radiant with that not just with great love, but with great understanding of wisdom that radiates from them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, anything anyone wants to add on or share? Okay, so we then go to verse 13 before we revise all the verses until now. Yeah, so this is what we were reading. If in return for not the slightest wrong of mine, someone were to cut off even my very head, through the power of compassion to take all his negative actions upon myself is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So this is what we were reading. Easier said than done, but we have to practice whenever we can. Yeah, so maybe we can just, so last 2 pages are left, so yeah, maybe we can take, I don't remember where exactly we stopped last. Yeah, this we read. My greatest fear was losing compassion. So maybe we can start from here. Although few of us are going to be imprisoned. Would anyone want to read?
Yeah, we had read this. We had also read when an Australian friend of ours
अच्छा ये
was
भी हो
right.
गया था, yeah. Thank you for reminding. So this just last page is left then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so starting from in the case, right?
Yeah.
In the case where we haven't done anything wrong. Yes, anyone who wants to read?
Yes. In the case where we haven't done anything wrong and others are being mean, the other point to consider is that we ourselves created the causes from past lives. Nothing just happens. Yeah, thank you. Nothing just happens without a cause either in this life or in some past life. These seeds were planted and they are now coming up. If we respond with anger, indignation, or fear, we are just creating more negative karma. Whereas if we respond with patience and love and understanding, then that karma becomes purified completely. Sometimes I get letters from people who reiterate how they got cheated out of some property or someone abused them maybe even 30 years ago. It is so sad. I keep reminding them that all this happened in the past. Just let it go and consider right now, what have you got? They are creating their own suffering far more than the person who cheated them. It is like having a wound that if we leave alone will start to heal itself, but if we keep scratching, then it just gets worse and in the end becomes infected and poisons our whole system. We cannot base our lives on anger, resentment, and fear. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a wonderful example of how to cope skillfully with unfair oppression, as in Aung San Suu Kyi, who has been under so much pressure and faced so many difficulties, and no doubt a lot of fear under the repressive government. But still, while under house arrest, instead of using her time to write scathing letters around the world about the awful government, she meditated, read books, thought constructively, and tried to use that time to inwardly develop a bodhisattva. If we are faced with someone who is especially difficult, we can try to just put ourselves in their shoes. How would we like to have their mind? What would it be like? Then we feel natural compassion because people don't harm others unless they themselves are hurting inside. A person who is completely happy and at peace with themselves don't need to hurt others. In the end, it all comes back to our own inner response, not what happens to us, but how we deal with it, with what happens to us, skillfully or unskillfully. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche taught that in return for harm, a bodhisattva tries to give help and benefit. This brings us to verse 14.
Yeah, thank you. So this understanding that whatever harm is coming to us, one has to deal with it as much positively, as much skillfully as one can. I saw a reflection of this in this the earlier Ramayana that used to come of Ramanand Sagar. So there, this has happened. Kekai has asked the two boons at a wrong time from Dashrath, and it's very interesting to see how the whole family deals with this Kekai actually, because one can easily consider her as a very negative woman, and how dare you kind of spoil. And her own children actually, they actually say these things to her that you are like kulta and whatever, how dare you do this to Bhaiya Ram. So Bharat says and Shatrughan says all these things, but then it's very interesting to see the dialogues what they have chosen and the attitude the rest of the family has. So Kaushalya, who is the mother of Ram, she is saying that Kekai is not at fault, because whatever our older karmas are, she's just becoming an instrument so that we can actually go through those, the results of those older karmas. So she has just become an instrument. There's no particular fault of hers. So I was really surprised to see that dialogue because not, all the dialogues are quite interesting, but it was very beautiful to see that. And also when Dashrath is dying, he's they usually people say that how when you are close to your death, it's like a revisit that you get, you like important moments come to you. So when Dashrath is dying, he's suddenly just like in glimpses he's shown that how Shravan Kumar was killed by him, uh, thinking that it is a deer, and how the parents of Shravan Kumar gave him a curse, and how he actually went through the same separation, pang of separation that they went through. So, and then later on they show that of course Kekai is well embraced and accepted by the other two wives of Dashrath, and they don't consider it them Kekai at fault, and even Ram also of course doesn't consider Kekai being faulty. And all that they were saying is that it is our own karma, whatever we have to go through, we have to go through. Any person can become the medium for that harm to be inflicted on us. So it was very interesting to see the perspective that इतनी understanding और इतनी समझ के साथ भी लिया जा सकता है. One just goes through. Yeah. And there was no point of blame. Like in Kaushalya, they did not show at all like a pinch of blame on Kekai, that So it was quite interesting to see that purity there. So this was just, it came to me on the first paragraph where it says that the other point to consider is that we ourselves created the causes from past lives. Nothing just happens without a cause in this life or in some past life. These seeds were planted and they are now coming up. If we respond with anger, indignation, or fear, we are just creating more negative karma. Whereas if we respond with patience and love and understanding, which again for us is challenging, but we have to try at best we can, then the karma becomes purified completely. So this is our chance. And I think in one of the talks, Thich Nhat Hanh also shares that how if I have a moment of anger or something, which is negative, as if I'm given a chance to purify the karma, not only of my own, but even of my ancestors. Because that is a pattern that is running, and I will transfer on to my kids, without knowing. So if I become conscious in that moment of either greed or, whatever is negative, or anger and frustration and like this feeling of revenge, if I step back from that, then I actually help to clear all that negativity building up. Compound interest कहते हैं ना शायद maths में. It keeps on accumulating. Yeah, anything here on the first one? Anyone?
I mean, this is just my personal feeling, but I guess I do struggle with this viewpoint a little bit. Uh, you know, because I think, for example, Shobando himself, we know he was involved in the revolutionary movement, and he did, he used violence. I look upon, like some of the Indian, greats, like, Bhagat Singh or Subhash Chandra Bose as great warriors. So I think we touched on this the last time too, but I mean, it's just, this is my personal feeling that uh, the the explanation that Shobando has given for karma, I mean, I personally feel is unparalleled, as an evolutionary mechanism, as opposed to this, I feel it's a little bit this reward and punishment, and many people have talked about it also, is so ingrained in everywhere. Uh, I do not. I think many of us, including all of you, we've said that, right? It is a mechanism of growth of consciousness. So with that in mind, whatever is happening, if you look at it, this is help to make you grow, versus that, oh, मैंने किसी को कुछ किया था, so now I'm being punished. So I think I heard this on one of I think a lecture, or somebody lecture. So even my mother, I tell her the same thing, because she will keep saying these things. And this has happened because I must have done something or whatever. So if you look at it that way, Pandav, they had like the most glorious, characters, and they suffered the most. What is the question of divine justice then, right? I mean, they must be terrible people in their previous births to go through so much pain. But there was a reason for that, right? So that is the thing I feel. So personally, like I said, I mean, it's okay. I think there are aspects to it that one can take, as I think she's so beautifully pointed out, that, if you harbor that resentment, that, eats you. And I think that is very true. But yeah, that's maybe my main kind of disconnect with it.
Yeah, absolutely fine to have a disconnect, and resonating with the fact that Sri Aurobindo has elaborated it in a wide extent. And I also resonate with what Sri Aurobindo has shared, but I do resonate with this, that if I do an action in jealousy and anger, there is no excuse that I can give myself, that as if, I'm born to do this because I have to take that experience. So we as conscious beings can do better. I think there I take this lesson for me, that if I see anger, I'm conscious of anger and resentment in me, I can choose better. Because if I continue to say that everything is honi, ये तो मेरा soul का experience है, तो इसका मतलब then I will not be, you know, of course you are right, in saying that all of us have chosen our own experiences to go through. It's not like punishment and reward, but we are also responsible for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So I think here in this aspect is about that responsibility, that be responsible for your thoughts, feelings, and action. Because not only do they hurt others, they also, first of all, I hurt myself. Whenever I have any feeling, so कहते हैं ना कि कर्म के बाद फल आता है, ऐसा है नहीं ना, कर्म ही फल हो जाता है. Because the moment I am angry, or the moment I am in greed and lust and desire, the harm it does to my being, the suffering and misery it brings to my being, that is its own result. And any action that I do then from that state will actually bring me more misery. There is no doubt about that. Now that is a different situation, that if I am, say, like an Angulimal, and after doing a lot of sins, I reach a point like a pinnacle that, I just kind of revert, and of course those things also happen. But that doesn't mean that I am not responsible for my actions. So I think here, as you rightly said, that it is showing us that aspect of our life, that we can be responsible for our actions. Karma in that sense, we can be responsible for our thoughts, feelings, actions, behavior, speech. Because otherwise, what is the point of me having this consciousness which can see? अगर मुझे दाल और काले में फर्क ही नहीं पता लगता, तो मेरे और even an animal would know better, actually. Because an animal by instinct would go to that thing, or eating, like food wise, which he knows, somehow that instinct is there, that ye khana mere liye acha hai, and it would not eat the poisonous patti. It knows, the intelligence is working. तो मेरे और एनिमल में एक्चुअली आई एम इवन मोर गया गुजरा देन द एनिमल, क्योंकि मैं तो वही पॉइजनस पत्ती को रूमिनेट करती रहती हूँ, है ना. सो व्हाट इज द पॉइंट ऑफ me having this consciousness which is there? So I think here that aspect is just that let us be more responsible for our body, speech, and mind, because we can do that. Yeah. Yeah. And regarding the rebirth theory, of course, it is beautiful to read Sri Aurobindo, where he shares that if a person has been a king in a previous life, he now chooses to be a beggar, because the psychic being wants all the various kinds of experiences, like extremely opposite. तो जब हम ऐसी चीजें पढ़ते हैं, जैसे मदर कहती हैं कि अगर आपको वाइज होना है तो आप श्री अरबिंदो को पढ़ो. मदर सेज दैट इफ यू वांट टू बिकम वाइज, रीड श्री अरबिंदो. So when we read this, actually we look at beggars and ourselves in a different light. फिर वो जजमेंट हम नहीं कैरी कर सकते अपने या किसी के लिए. वो अलग बात है कि हम फिर भी कैरी कर लेते हैं, बट उसके चांसेस हैं that we will let go of those judgments. Anything more? Anyone?
In the last passage that she was talking about, where she talks about, you go deep and you encounter sharks, and uh, I am assuming that is like the subconscious, right? Where would you say that would be accurate?
Yeah. And this is also, we were reading in Savitri also the other day. When Savitri enters the inner countries, she comes across all kind of dark and evil and ugly things. Gnomes and goblins and, these kind of things, Sri Aurobindo names. So yes, yeah, we encounter many things which what she was sharing in that talk was that at times we are not ready and mentally stable to go through those darknesses. So then we must seek the help of a therapist or a healer. So otherwise these kind of plunges can be dangerous.
Yeah, and Usme, I think I was remembering something from, I think maybe Shobindu has written or Mother, but that to do that before purifying the psychic is very dangerous. I don't remember the exact words. So, Joe, the point was that if you just directly go into that, these other practices or whatever, then it's very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. And that is why in Savitri also, when we were reading that entry into the inner countries, so if we remember, some of us, then how she deals through those challenges and darknesses, she held truth in her heart. There was truth in her heart, and there is a line in Savitri which says, "Only those were safe who kept God in their heart." Because many terrains one has to go through within, which can be dangerous. And if we are, because the psychic is that part of us which is just, it's like a magnet, it is pulled towards the divine. So if that thing has awakened to a certain degree, it keeps us close to the name, to the divine, and then one can pierce through all the darkness. So yes. So we can go further, then take the next one. Sometimes I get letters from people who reiterate how they got cheated of some property or someone abused them, maybe even 30 years ago. It is so sad. I keep reminding them that all this happened in the past. Just let it go. And consider right now, what have you got? They are creating their own suffering far more than the person who cheated them. It is like having a wound that if we leave alone will start to heal itself. But if we keep scratching, then it just gets worse and in the end becomes infected and poisons our whole system. I mean, this is something which all of us must have done whenever somebody hurts us or we have a very challenging, difficult experience. It is like we can't control ourselves and not think about it. So that is where mastery of mind comes, that we have to tame this monkey mind to a relative degree. Otherwise, we actually do ourselves a lot of harm in just doing a lot of jugali of those things that happened in the past. And right now, if I look at myself, I am healthy, I am not in the hospital, my mind is working fine, my organs are working fine. But those things totally go in the drain. Like those, I don't look at it. All that matters is what is missing, what is missing, what is missing. While if we come back to the present moment and really realize that yes, I may have lost many things, persons, relationships, money and property and respect and name, but look at me now, I have really so much to be grateful for. So हमारी अक्सर नजर उससे हट जाती है. And it is only, I feel with my experiences many times, whenever I have come back to the present moment, which at times can be difficult, but if one pushes oneself and does come back to the present moment, one realizes that really one has so many things to be grateful for, and one can start a new fresh beginning from that space. Otherwise, and Jetsunma, in one of the talks, she shares that in Buddhism we think that the mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, but actually it is let go. So which we find so hard to do. Anything here? Anyone? Yeah, so slowly I think we have to lose that bad taste of being in the past and always worrying about the future. And once that habit changes by a cultivation of a good habit, nurturing ourselves and fostering ourselves in the present moment, whatever we have got, I think then slowly we lose that bad taste and then we can't do that jugali anymore. It brings us lots of, like, we don't feel comfortable in that rumination. So slowly I think we have to change our taste. Yeah. I think this again, we can resonate with another example of Sri Aurobindo, how when he was put in Alipur jail, how well he utilized his time, and what a beautiful new beginning he gave to himself. So oftentimes when we have silent times to ourselves, which feel like, oh, I have no friends or whatever, people are maybe, you are in a place which feels like a seclusion, not really physical place, just like life situation may be like that. We often lament and keep lamenting about loneliness. Oh, I'm so lonely. And what do I do with this emptiness? But we never really bother to see that what all we can actually do with that emptiness. It's a beautiful place to give new birth to ourselves, which many, many, many people have done, specifically in jails. We have lots of examples who people who have, when they went to prisons, they were, after coming out, about, after 20-25 years, they were changed human beings. They were completely changed human beings. Nelson Mandela is one example, and then these are others in front of us, and many more which we are not aware of. So if we know how to be with that emptiness and loneliness and to turn it into something very beautiful for us, and as mother says that mostly we waste that empty time. And in one of the, I think we had shared it, I don't remember when and on what group, mother says that to speak of the best, you read a book, and you call a friend, and this, she said, that this is the best among the best. There are also lower forms of entertainment that we indulge in when we are alone, but then she says that if you have got these empty pockets of time, think about, why am I here? Why am I born? What is the purpose of my life? So think about these questions and wonder and reflect, and of course, then it can go on. I feel that like taming the mind and bringing it back to the breath or mother's name or whoever we resonate with, that is also a very beautiful pastime that we can cultivate rather than remaining immersed in the thoughts all the time, ruminating, regurgitating, chewing the same cud again and again. Instead of that, if we can dip ourselves in some beautiful thoughts, lofty thoughts, and bring the mind to the present moment again and again, because it keeps kind of slipping away, that also is a beautiful pastime. Yeah, so the first half of the last paragraph seems a little challenging, may seem a little challenging, but if we come to the second half, we see that if we are working on our own self and not basing our happiness on other people and situations, then we are actually one drop of poison less. And actually, it is kind of a social service from our side that if we can take care of our own contentment and peace and happiness, and we don't torture other people and situations that you are responsible for my happiness, how dare you don't do that. So we are actually, we won't be able to hurt others if we are taking care of our peace and happiness. So a person who is completely happy and at peace, so means completely responsible for my own growth and nurture, they They don't need to hurt others, doesn't need to hurt others. And in the end, it all comes back to our inner response. Not what happens to us, but how we deal with what happens to us. So totally, I think it really brings all the power back to ourselves, that whatever may be happening in my life, I know that I can take care of my own inner contentment and happiness. Something poisonous may have happened outside, but if I tell myself that no, I don't even want one drop of poison anymore, no, immediately I can let go of that happening. I can actually brush it off my shoulders immediately and say that no, I deserve better. And we can stop to ruminate and regurgitate about the happening, and again kind of restore our inner harmony and balance. I think that is the biggest gift that we can give our own self. And also when we interact with outer situation, then after that restoring of that inner balance, we are a different person again. We are a fresh person. We are not a rotten person from that earlier experience. So I think this needs to be cultivated, and this we need to do again and again and again and again, because yeah, poison is everywhere, and especially my own mind builds more poison. So I have to be conscious of that inner space and keep it pure. As Sri Aurobindo says, that if you wish to install a living divine presence, keep the temple clean. So it is totally, the onus is on me. Nobody is to blame. And then of course it is easier for me, I think it's easier then to look at the first few lines of this paragraph, that when I'm taking care of my own inner sanctity, then actually if people are behaving in a manner which may be not very nice, then I don't take it on my own self, you know, because how much they will be suffering that they have to act like that. So one can, you know, look at from that point of view also. But usually I take it upon myself, you know, कि मैंने कुछ गलत किया होगा, अच्छा मेरे मेरे साथ ये क्यों हुआ, तो हम वहां ज्यादा चले जाते हैं. Yeah, so any last comments, anyone, any reflections?
Yeah, I think it's so also beautifully tying up together, what you shared, that only those who are safe, who kept God in their heart. And then here we see we cannot base our lives on anger, resentment, and fear. And then we are talking about, you know, how we are operating, like as in, how Vishalji was saying that somewhere it felt as if it's not that we are not doing any action, like, Ram's father, what was his name? What was Ram's
Dashrath,
father?
Dashrath.
Dashrath, thank you, so sorry. Yeah, so uh, if Dashrath was suffering, he didn't blame Kaikai, but it's not that he didn't suffer. He did suffer. Like वो कर्म या जो भी होना था, जो what he had to go through, he went through that. Nobody blamed Kaikai, but it doesn't mean she didn't feel the brunt of what she had done. She had done that. Kaushalya, it's not that, just by forgiving Kaikai, you're not blaming her. It's not that she didn't feel the pain of whatever. And it's not that Ram, not blaming her, didn't go, he went. So we have to do all the actions. It's like, Savitri didn't just sit and said, हाँ लेके जाने ले जा, right? Like, अरे ये तो मेरा ही कोई कर्म होगा. So it's about doing the action, but not getting lost in the stories, because when I get lost in the stories, then my action is diverted, it's distracted, it's confused, and then that karmic change. You blame me, then I blame you. You blame me, I blame you. And then that circle continues life after life after life. And I think that's why what you were sharing, Tekna, Thai, he shares that if you stop, you're like clearing that whole thing. And now, probably in the next generation, that thing is stopped because one person could stop that cycle. So the karma has to be there. Nobody is saying Jetsunmala or anybody, they're never saying that don't do the work, right? But just don't get these these things that are not needed. And that's what we usually, 95% of our being is spent in, this happened to me because of this, and rather than focusing on कि अच्छा मैं अब निकलूं कैसे ना, मैं फिसल गया, तो who would have kept this banana peel, who has kept this, somebody must have wanted me to fall, मेरे कोई कर्म होंगे. Like I can sit and just keep saying, crying, blaming, shouting, complaining कि अरे मेरे साथ ही ऐसा क्यों होता है, or I can see how do I get up. Then, that line again, that only those were saved who kept God in their hearts. Then they don't have place for that complaining, that fear, that resentment, that victim identity, that guilt consciousness. Okay, ho gaya, done. How do I move forward? It's like, and if I have to change something, do something, pick up a sword or anything like, we were talking about Bhagat Singh and Subhash Chandra Bose, that has to be done, but it's not directed towards something. It's just for the right reason, right? Dharm, like it's said in Mahabharata, not directed towards somebody personally, but that's the fight of truth over falsehood, and that's my motivating factor. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, one more thing to add, and Vishal is fine, by the way. The G is not required.
नहीं,
But
हम तो
mother
जी ही
says,
बोलेंगे विशाल जी.
अच्छा, नहीं,
Yeah,
you know,
please.
the one good thing in the US, or maybe Taru also can relate to this, but uh, कि यहाँ पर you might be 85 years old, you might be 30 or 40 or 50, 60, whatever the whole range is. It's everybody calls everybody by the first
नहीं,
name. I
लेकिन
actually find it
हम तो इंडियन रूट्स वाले हैं, तो हम आपको
India, अच्छा, ठीक है,
ठीक है. हाँ, अब
ठीक है,
यू
ठीक
कंटिन्यू
है,
व्हाट यू वर शेयरिंग.
So mother says something very beautiful, right? Ki life is difficult. I'll just read it. It is not difficult, but one must know what one is doing. Never seek a support elsewhere than in the divine. Never seek satisfaction elsewhere than in the divine. Never seek the satisfaction of your needs in anyone except the divine. Never, for anything at all. All your needs can be satisfied only by the divine. All your weaknesses can be borne and healed only by the divine. He alone is capable of giving you what you need in everything, always. And if you try to find any satisfaction or support or help or joy or heaven knows what in anyone else, you will always fall on your nose one day. And that always hurts. Sometimes even hurts very much. I was remembering this, and I always found it very beautiful because what you just said earlier, this pain, because there is an expectation. And of course, wrong things happen. And I think, as Naru said, you have to, fight as well. But I mean, we see even our loved ones may not, we might have some expectation and that may never come through. And that really hurts and you harbor that resentment. So I see people with this, all the time they're remembering, I think I was mentioned there, 30 years back this happened and 25 years back. But there was that expectation they had that this person should have fulfilled whatever obligation or duty or whatever you want to call it. Always I just search for it right now. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I think very relevant and one of my favorite paragraphs. And I think Buddhism also helps us because for me it was this hitting on the face that I cannot depend upon anything in the world. Whatever is of the world, I cannot depend upon it for happiness. I think that enlightenment for me came from the Buddhist texts where they talk about this idea of impermanence. and fleetingness of things and people and situations, and to have like a base in a groundlessness, rather to keep finding ground in people and relationships and situations, because there it's like you are trying to find a base in quicksand, or like a daldal hota hai na, daldal mein you are trying to find a base. So there, that can never ever happen, because that is not the design of the creation. तो अगर ये जो आपने पैराग्राफ सुनाया, अगर ये हमको जल्दी समझ में आ जाए, again we are all need all kind of life experiences before we come to this conviction that actually this is true, not for myself but for each one of us, that the world, everything of the world, it can never give me anything which is lasting in contentment. I think that realization then changes, and then the whole onus of my lasting contentment comes on me. Then I can stop blaming people and situations and having grudges and resentments, because it is not supposed to be like that. तो डिजाइन ही नहीं है. तो जब जब ये समझ में आता है कि तो डिजाइन ही नहीं है, ओ तो फिर काय की उम्मीद रखना, and then we can actually do what mother says, disinterested work. क्योंकि अब आपको पता लग गया कि यहाँ इंटरेस्ट से कुछ करना है ही नहीं, क्योंकि इंटरेस्ट यूजुअली किस चीज के लिए होता है? You always, at the crux of it, whether respect, name, fame, you want happiness, and that only happiness which is lasting, it doesn't go away. Now the very fact that the things and people and situation have all different unfoldings of life, and they will be changing, tells me that I cannot have any personal interest satisfied here for a long time. It will bring me disappointment. तो slowly I think through life experiences, अगर हमको ये conviction develop हो जाए, so then that inner turn and complete reliance on the divine, what we were talking, I think that becomes relatively easier, one can say. तो तब इतनी disappointment नहीं होती life and life की situations में, because as Jetsunma says that what else do you expect, from samsara or the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think I was just, this, and the reason I also remember this because I was actually faced with a situation where somebody, anyways, it's not going to go into the situation, but it's work related, and somebody just, you know, the people are very nice, and then suddenly they start behaving differently, right? And then I was thinking, okay, what's going on, kind of, but this is the sort of stuff that happens all the time, right? And of course, we don't know what people are going through, right? So that is the other angle too. Everybody has their own personal thing. But then you start thinking, and then I said, I just thought of this. I said, this is what it is. This is exactly what it is. You can't expect anything from anybody. I mean, you may think they're your best friend or, your closest, this thing. I mean, even relation, right? So,
Absolutely, absolutely. आई थिंक जो नॉर्मल वर्ल्डली सांसारिक रिलेशंस होते हैं उसके लिए तो ये पक्का है ही है, बट हमें ये लगने लग जाता है हमारी ब्लाइंडनेस में दैट दोज सो कॉल्ड स्पिरिचुअल रिलेशंस दैट वी हैव, है ना, हमको लगता है अरे ये तो मेरा स्पिरिचुअल बॉन्ड है, यहाँ पे बट मजे की बात ये है कि एनीथिंग वर्ल्डली, द डिजाइन इज सच दैट इट कैन नॉट एवर एवर बिकम आवर बेस, चाहे वो स्पिरिचुअल है, नॉन स्पिरिचुअल है, कुछ भी है, उसको कुछ भी गार्ब पहना दो. So I think it's a very good realization, yes, for all of us in our own domains of life and experiences. तो देर आए दुरुस्त आए, अच्छी बात है.
Yeah, one more thing I see here is that when I hear this, what Vishal was just sharing.
अरे इंडियन रूट्स आपकी भूल
Yeah.
गए?
वो तो she's migrated to Canada,
Yeah.
ना?
No, not migrated.
She is not
Indian roots are gone.
migrated. She is not
Huh.
migrated. Please
Just
don't say that
temporarily
word.
there.
Yes,
Yeah, so
yes,
अच्छा, she's in Canada right now. Okay, let
yeah.
us say that.
But she is not changed. अभी इंडियन रूट्स याद है उसको अभी.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I hear what, your favorite thing and what he just shared, there is something in me which feels like a victim a little bit कि यहाँ से नहीं मिलेगा, हाय मतलब kind ना कि as if कि दुनिया ही kind of ऐसी है, but somewhere in that I save myself and I feel कि मैं बेचारा मैं तो बहुत कुछ करता हूँ, बट मेरे साथ मुझे नहीं मिलेगा, वो ये बोल रहे हैं. बट इफ आई सी कि इवन आई हैव डन सो मच harm or whatever, like I have been the reason for so many falls or disappointments or unmet expectations, then somehow it completes the picture for me कि it's not the nature of it, like I am led towards that, or something in me, my tendency, my this thing, my weaknesses, my preferences, then I feel it keeps me more grounded कि हाँ, ना मैंने दिया है ना मुझे मिल रहा है, kind, like not in a very, like the way I said it, it sounded arrogant or revengeful, not that way, but just to see things for what they are, कि neither was I able to give, nor will I be able to get, because that's not, except for, right, temporary basis, because that's not how it is.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely. It's not the design. Basically, it's not the design. हाँ, तो ना मुझे मिलेगा ना किसी और को मिलेगा. और ये सावित्री और श्री अरबिंदो भी, at other places also he shares, mother also shares, that imagine, if we found contentment in the worldly things, who will ever turn to the divine? तो अपना काम कैसे पूरा करेंगे? और most of us, मतलब मेरा तो I can see many times, most of us actually turn intensely to the divine only when बहुत पिटाई होती है. जब सबसे ज्यादा पिटाई हो रही होती है तो सबसे ज्यादा अंदर घुसता है, जैसे वो छोटा बच्चा होता है ना, उसको कहीं डर लग रहा है इधर उधर, और मम्मी खड़ी हुई है उधर, तो मम्मी की साड़ी में जाके सर घुसा देता है. ये मैंने बच्चों को नीचे करते हुए देखा है, कि एज इफ यू वांट टू फाइंड सम सोलेस. तो जितना ज्यादा मेरी पिटाई होती है, मैं तो उतना ही श्री अरबिंदो के अंदर जाती हूँ. तो अच्छा है, पिटाई होती रहे, और मदर और श्री अरबिंदो के अंदर सब घुसते रहे. मतलब जरूरी नहीं है कि सबको पिटाई से जाना है, तो अपनी बात बता रही. जिसकी बिना हो अच्छा है, उसके बिना भी घुस जाए तो. बट फिर पिटाई से डर नहीं लगता, फिर अच्छी, मतलब ऐसा लगता है कि हाँ, एक अच्छी जगह लेके जा रही है. आई थिंक वी वर रीडिंग इन सम और द अदर सेशन regarding वो blows of the Kali that we were reading. I think that if we begin to realize what benefit it is bringing us, then it's not blow actually, it is then heavenly cruelty. It's like a compassionate grace that's acting. Yeah. तो बढ़िया है, सब पिटते रहें, भगवान के अंदर घुसते रहें. और कुछ लास्ट किसी ने कहना है? या if anyone has any last comments, I think that revision which I was thinking we can do next time, today. And today we finished verse 13. Next time we can start with a revision of the earlier verses, like just taking up the verse, going through them, and then taking up verse 14. Anything last? Anyone? Okay, so let's take a moment of silence to dedicate and share all the merit, collective and individual. Sharing it with all the sentient beings. May we all be truly well and truly happy. Yeah, thank you.